Welcome back, folks. Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. Saturday evening. This is a round 3 summary of the solo playtest Global War 1939 game. This was a interesting round. Not really that dramatic. Nothing. No big crazy battles. The battle for Calcutta fell very easily to the Japanese. They sent in 10 ground units to Calcutta and 3 aircraft. And it was a surprise attack. They did a surprise attack on Calcutta, on Singapore or Malaya, and also here on Sumatra. And I think they took Singapore without suffering a hit or a casualty. And they did lose one infantry when they took Sumatra, and they did not lose a single infantry when they took Calcutta. The Japanese inherited 29 IPC when they captured Calcutta, and that's also a 5 bonus, and the territory I think is worth 3. So that is a pretty good swing in terms of economy for the Japanese. They also did a landing in Madras, which the British or the Far East Command had to take back because there was a substantial navy here with 2 transports that could have swung into the Middle East or come over here. So this navy here is about 13 units. It's about the same size as the British Navy. So neither one wants to sort of approach each other. The British did build an air base in Cairo for this scramble. So these are all in actually this sea zone here. They're just too big to fit. So the Japanese wanted to send more navy to help, but they chose against that because they sent the rest of their navy back up here just off of Tokyo because of the American naval presence over here. So they wanted to sort of let the Americans know that they were serious. Don't come any closer because we're going to wipe you out. So they wanted the Americans to back off. So that was that maneuver there. Little bit of a air blitz happened in China. One of the tanks in Burma, from Siam, came and blitzed through. It came into Yunnan and took out with I think 4 of their aircraft and took out the Chinese tank and a couple other units. The Chinese only scored 1 hit in return, but the Japanese objective was to kill the 2 infantry and armor, and they also did an air blitz. There was a single Chinese armor there, and I think they sent in 3 aircraft there and took that out, and it did not suffer a casualty. So that was pretty effective, wiping out the Chinese forces in the south. However, even though the Japanese were able to take Hong Kong and build at their factory, they had 5 units wiped out here by the Chinese, who are now on the doorstep of one step away from... Actually, they're on the doorstep of recapturing this factory and 2 steps away from taking back Hong Kong, which might be unlikely. We'll get into that in a second. The Russians backed up, even though they did secure most of the original Chinese territories with the exception of Korea. But they backed up and sort of regained with about 10 units there, including 2 small armor. And that is because the Japanese Navy came home, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, another transport down there. So they're able to load 7 transports and hit along the coast anywhere next turn if they wanted to. So that is a threat that the Japanese did not want to ignore. Now, something else. When the Japanese took Calcutta, they were worried because that is a 35 bonus for the American economy. 10 for being stationed in Calcutta, and 25 for an unprovoked attack for against the Far East Command. So basically, if the America rolled 22 or higher, which the Japanese did not know, they could have declared war, which is also why, because that would have put them up to 80. So that is also why the Japanese Navy decided to come home. So that was basically sort of the Pacific in a nutshell. The Japanese still have their entire Air Force intact. They did build a factory here in Siam. The Anzac built 2 transports, naval transports, Australia Commando or a Z unit, and they're ready to pick up some guys here and head out into the Pacific, the Money Islands, or maybe up here to the Carolines. They've got their eye on the Carolines, which they could link up. This Navy here, which took, what territory is this? Celebes. They took Celebes last turn, so they've got, you know, not a bad small Navy forming there. The Americans flew all of their aircraft to Midway, or actually they left them on Midway off the carriers, and they've still got 4 infantry, just in case the Japanese decided to do an amphibious attack on Midway, because there is an air and naval base there, so maybe the Japanese want to capture it to take control of that. The American fleet backed up to Hawaii, and they built an aircraft carrier and 2 more ground units. So they're now going to have 3 transports in the Pacific. Australia's got 22 to spend next turn. Japan has 102 to spend next turn. In America, well, we'll talk about America. They had a better dice roll. They did not roll 22. They rolled a 16. So America will have 74 to spend next turn. So not bad. They will be in the war next turn unless they roll a 6 or less. But I'm assuming that the Germans are going to declare war on the Russians. So that's another 10 IPP bonus for the Americans. So the Canadians came down here with 2 transports from Brazil. They took everybody, and they came 1, 2, 3. They came down and dropped everybody off in Brazil. The British built a fighter. The coastal battleship moved 3. There's now a naval base here. It came 1, 2, 3. So it's now here. Now over here in the North Africa, if you remember in Upper Egypt, I think there was 4 Italians. And there was also about 7 mix of German and Italian ground units there. And the British did not like that, so they spread out with some infantry, and they did an air blitz, and it was mutual destruction. They lost all of their infantry, but they also got rid of all of the ground units that were surrounding Cairo. So that was sort of a win-win for the British. They were able to bring the AAA and an infantry up to Cairo, and they built another 3 units. So there's about 15 units total there. And the Italians came and took Transjordan back, and they have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ground units total. The British, there are 2 tanks that were in Bombay. One came to southwest Iran and up into Iran. The other one liberated Tehran. And the two units from Iraq came and wiped out the British tank and 2 infantry in Tehran with an air blitz from the Italians. So there was also 2 Italians here, and they got into a battle here with the 3 infantry from Congo, and that was supported by one of the bombers that came from here. So Italy lost last round about 12 infantry or 12 ground units or so that were around here in Africa. So that was pretty painful. So Italy reloaded. Italy built some more ground units here. They've got 5 more infantry here. They're able to load another transport here, and they built 2 more transports for the Germans to hop on. The Germans have reloaded, So they're able to load 2 armor and 2 infantry and go somewhere next turn in the Mediterranean if they choose. And this damage, it's not actually damage, it's transport. This was actually part of the Kriegsmarine next turn. So the start of the next German turn, what's going to happen is the start of the round, Germany's going to say, we are borrowing these 2 transports here. They are now part of the Kriegsmarine. They will get a marker to denote that, and the Italians are going to help them move their 4 units wherever the Germans decide. Now there is a bit of a problem here now on the Eastern Front. I think the Germans, I counted, there's about 35 units there. They're all sort of infantry and artillery, no real heavy hitters, all sitting here in Romania, ready to do some damage next turn. Also here in Warsaw, they're ready to come in. Now, the Germans came in heavy to Valpuri, and they wiped out the remaining Russians, and then they had 2 armor there and an artillery, and the Russians were out of position, and they had to take them out, because if they left those units there, they would have captured the factory on their next turn, and that major would have turned into a minor, and the Russians could not cope with that. So they sent 4 of their aircraft, 4 fighters and a tactical to kill it. They lost 2 fighters, and they were able to basically clear Valpuri. They weren't able to take it back because they had no ground units, but their mission was achieved in saving this factory. So next turn, if Germany declares war on Russia, which they still might not, we'll get into that in a second, then this factory will be safe. And they did build 3 infantry there, and they drove 2 fast movers to Leningrad, and they are bulking up. So all the guys from Novosibirsk have all basically made their way back. So Russia is starting to build units for the defense of Moscow. Germany built another transport, a couple more submarines, and another sub-pen. So they've now got 4 submarines here ready to launch into the Atlantic. The Russian Navy wanted to be out of position in the submarines, so they're hiding up here near Baffin Island. The British built a corvette, and the Canadians built 2 naval transports. They're able to load 4 units. So why they decided to do that was because there's only 1 unit in Paris. The Allies over here want to put pressure on Germany to start building some stuff over here now. Leave Russia alone. Stop building all these fast movers here to head this way. Loading 4 units in Normandy, Bordeaux, you can't really ignore that. The British also flew one of their ferry Swordfish into Rio de Oro. Maybe it's going to start making its way over here. These 2 French Foreign Legion are just kind of hanging out here in Tripoli. There's 2 Italians there and 2 veteran Luftwaffe. So why is important the British built an air base here is because if these 2 transports come down here and there's a scramble, unless it's supported by these 5 fighters, they're going to sink those transports. So those transports are likely not to hit Cairo. They can reinforce over here, but they cannot hit Cairo until there's, so that is a problem for the Germans. America also built a destroyer over here in the Atlantic, getting prepared next turn maybe to be in the war. That is sort of a round summary. The British economy is getting a little bit weaker. And something I don't think is in the rule book, but the Far East Command did liberate this territory, and they also liberated Burma. Now, where does that money go? Does it go to the UK and the Pacific, or what happens to all of the money? I don't think it's in the rule book, so I'm glad this scenario came up. My thoughts are the territory that's liberated, that money goes to the UK, but the territories that were original Far East Command, that money is lost. So let me know what you think of that scenario. What should happen? Because this is Calcutta is probably going to be under Japanese control in a lot of the games. So I want it to be clear in the rule book what happens to, because there was British units there. So that is a subject for discussion. I'm going to send that question out to my play testers and see. I think in the original, I think this money does not go to the British because, yes, so it does not. So this naval base here is actually in Ceylon. So actually, just remember that now. So that means this navy can only go 1, 2. So that is actually safe. I specifically put this naval base in Ceylon. It used to be over here in Madras, which would have meant, and I guess because the British took it back, the Japanese still can't use it, but that is historically, there was a naval base there, so in Ceylon, so wanted to keep that as part of history. Well, the Japanese also landed 1 unit up here in Brunei, so they could walk down to Borneo next turn. So they didn't branch out too far and grab all of the money islands. They're sort of more of a conservative approach. They still have all of their transports. So we're going to head into round 4. Oh yes, we never talked about what did Russia roll for their economy? They rolled a 13, so they are now at 24. And all their bonus money, I think they're at 30. They have 39 IPC to spend, or IPP to spend next turn. So that's nothing to scratch at. But if Germany declares war, they're going to be at 48 plus another NO for and plus all the territories they have over here. So it's still maybe the Germans will wait 1 more turn. I have not decided yet. What would you do, folks? Would you attack next turn? I think it's in Germany's best interest. So they want to start moving because if America's in the war, it could be a turn behind. And that's kind of what happened here with Italy in the Med. Because Germany was not allowed to land in Italy and get their Luftwaffe here down until turn 3. They were a little bit of a turn behind, and that hindered the Italians from getting a strong foothold in Africa. So that's kind of what happened there. And I just want to say, folks, in closing, that the dice have been a little bit unpredictable this round. Rolling for the US and the Russian economies was better this round. But, you know, folks, I just want to say that you don't want to get too high and too low in a game. You know the dice are going to get hot and they're going to get cold. You're hoping just for average, but you don't want to let it get your morale down. If you're in a team game as well, your teammates can pick up on that, and you want to keep your morale at a certain level. They say in sports, when you win, you don't want to get too high, and when you lose, you don't want to get too low. And so you really want to adopt that philosophy with the dice. And something that I'm working on, it's a key battle. I understand there's times when it can play on your emotions, so you just want to be even-keeled. So, and hopefully that attitude will bring you better dice moving forward, which they have in this game. So there's not much left here. It's been kind of mutual destruction. So thanks for watching, folks, and stay tuned for round 4.